I'm Jenna Miscavige. I was born and raised in Scientology. I left when I was 21 years old and wrote a book about it. My uncle, David Miscavige, is the leader of Scientology, and this is my YouTube channel. Hey guys! Okay, so in the plan to bring Scientology to justice, we have a few things going on. One is the video project, the effort to make a 2-minute video explaining to people why we're protesting Scientology, to essentially let the world know about their abuses and that they're not just some religious organization that needs protections, that they're actually a family-destroying, child-abusing cult. And so I made a video the other day talking about the type of video I want to make, and many of you gave so many wonderful suggestions. And also Kelly Copter and George Massey reached out to me, and they're going to help me with this project, which I'm really excited about because I really wanted them to, but I didn't want to ask. And so I tricked them into offering. Anyways, so thank you, George and Kelly, so much. I really, really appreciate this. And I'm super excited for what we're going to make. I think it's going to be really good and really impactful. I'm working on fine-tuning the voiceover and what exact clips we want to put in it, but that is underway. On another front, on the more legal front, I spoke to a lawyer yesterday, and it was just a brief conversation. We're going to be having a much longer conversation, but it was about child abuse and Scientology and statutes of limitations, and it was very interesting. And in this conversation I was having with the lawyer, in order to sort of relay my experience when I was there was one incident we talked about that I wanted to relay to you guys. And it was an incident that happened when I was 12 years old. I was brought as a minor child to Clearwater, Florida, on my own without my parents. And basically, I was told I was going to be trained as a Scientology auditor, and I was immediately put into the Sea Org, which is Scientology's most dedicated group, where people sign 1 billion year contracts, dedicating themselves lifetime after lifetime of servitude to Scientology. They live communally, they eat communally, they only make $50 a week. In my case, I only made $12 a week. They have little to no time off. They work 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and you forego the right to have kids. So I was put into this group at 12 years old, and I would try to call my parents at least once a week. The thing is that how the internal phone system worked on the base was that you were not allowed to call out. It only was an internal phone system. So you would dial like 4-digit numbers that would take you to different areas of the base, but you didn't have a way of dialing out unless you had a phone code. And only certain people were allowed to have a phone code. And this would have to get approved through several people, and the money to pay for outgoing calls would have to be approved. And calling my parents wasn't something that Scientology was going to approve money for. That was considered to be my personal expense for my personal reasons. I didn't have that kind of money because I only made $12, and I was already paying for all of my own hygiene supplies, all of my own laundry, my food at night. $12 doesn't go very far. My own socks and underwear. And even if I did have that money, I couldn't use Scientology's internal phone system. There was only one payphone at the place where we lived that I could use, and people would stand in line waiting to use that thing. And so what I would do instead is that one time, Tom and Jenny DeVocht, who were the highest level executives at the base in Clearwater, they once told me I could use their phone. And so I sort of lied to myself and said that if they let me use it once, then it was okay if I used it again. And when I was at the birthing doing executives' laundry and delivering them snacks and cleaning their rooms, I would basically use their phone to try to call my parents. Now, at first, in the first few months when I was there, I was able to get through to them, but all of a sudden I wasn't allowed to get through to my mom. And this went on for a month or longer, and finally I was even told to stop calling my mom by my dad, and I couldn't understand why. I was just told that she was on a special project. I was honestly pretty distraught about not being able to get a hold of my mom, and the reason was because I suspected that she was in trouble, and I had very good reason to suspect this. Somehow I managed to make a big enough stink about this where my dad told me that I was going to be getting on a plane to go back to see them in California. And this was all supposed to happen the next day. And I was getting ready. I had everything packed. I had a ride to the airport. And all of a sudden I was called back to the West Coast building, which was the building where the offices of the most senior organization there in Clearwater were. And I was met by Jenny DeVocht. Her and Tom were the senior most officials on the base. And she basically told me that I was not going to be allowed to go home and see my mom and my dad, that my flight was canceled and it's over and I'm now staying here. And so I started to argue. I was like, why? It's not fair. My flight was the next day. I want to see my parents. Again, I was 12 years old, you guys, 3,000 miles away from my parents. And she basically read me a Scientology policy, and it is called KSW, which stands for Keeping Scientology Working. And this is the most important policy in all of Scientology. You read it at the beginning of every Scientology class you ever do. You learn the 10 points of keeping Scientology working by heart. And she read me a portion of this policy that I had read over and over and over again. And I want to read it to you to give you guys an idea of how little regard Scientology has for children and how they see children as adults. They see them as Scientologists. They see them as Sea Org warriors. And so I'm going to read you the section of this policy that she read to me. And this is just one really long paragraph of a 7-page long policy, but I thought you guys might find it interesting. Now, I was saying that I wanted to go home and I no longer wanted to be trained as a Scientology counselor. I wanted to go be with my parents. And this is what she said to me. When somebody enrolls, consider he or she has joined up for the duration of the universe. Never permit an open-minded approach. If they're going to quit, let them quit fast. If they've enrolled, they're aboard. And if they're aboard, they're here on the same terms as the rest of us. Win or die in the attempt. Never let them be half-minded about being Scientologists. The finest organizations in history have been tough, dedicated organizations. Not one namby-pamby bunch of panty-waist dilettantes have ever made anything. It's a tough universe. The social veneer makes it seem mild, but only the tigers survive, and even they have a hard time. We'll survive because we're tough and are dedicated. When we do instruct somebody properly, he becomes more and more tiger. When we instruct half-mindedly and are afraid to offend, scared to enforce, we don't make students into good Scientologists, and that lets everybody down. When Miss Patty Cake comes to us to be taught, turn that wandering doubt in her eye into a fixed, dedicated glare, and she'll win and we'll all win. Humor her and we'll all die a little. The proper instruction attitude is, you're here, so you're a Scientologist. Now we're going to make you into an expert auditor, no matter what happens. We'd rather have you dead than incapable. And later on it says, we're not playing some minor game in Scientology. It isn't cute or something to do for lack of something better. The whole agonized future of this planet, every man, woman, and child on it, and your own destiny for the next endless trillions of years depend on what you do here and now with and in Scientology. This is a deadly serious activity, and if we miss getting out of the trap now, we may never again have another chance. Remember, this is our first chance to do so in all of the endless trillions of years of the past. Don't muff it now because it seems unpleasant or unsocial to do 7, 8, 9, and 10. Do them and we'll win. I wanted to read this to make the point of how dedicated Scientologists are and how dedicated they expected me to be as a 12-year-old and how little room they made in their policies, in their minds, in their rules, and in their actions for somebody to be a child and just want to be with their parents. And also I'm telling this story and reading this policy so that it's clear that not only is it Scientology itself that is the problem, but it is also executives and parents and other people who are working there who enforce these rules. After this incident happened with Jenny, I was actually furious. I wanted to go back and see my parents, and I did not want to accept no for an answer. And so, like the regular little psycho that I was, the next day I went into the exec dining room and found Jenny and started screaming at her, telling her that I wanted to go back and see my parents. And I got in a ton of trouble for this. This was basically the first time I ever had a real interrogation. And the person who interrogated me was a member of Religious Technology Center. Her name was Aldona Medina, and she was a representative of the highest level of organization in all of Scientology. And she brought me into a room that I could not leave, where I was being recorded, and she asked me questions like, did you have sex with your father? Did you rob a bank? Did you kill anybody? And I was so disgusted by these questions that I refused to answer them, or I said no. This was using a Scientology e-meter. She would not accept my answers. She told me I was lying. She told me I was going to be in huge trouble for not answering her questions. Guys, this is all when I was 12 years old. For the next few weeks, in order to smooth this over, I was actually put under the care of Claire Headley, who was a representative of the Religious Technology Center at the base. She was an adult, and she read through the policy, keeping Scientology working with me, word for word. And anytime I stumbled, anytime I messed up, she would look up words with me to make sure I fully understood this policy and grasped the importance of it. Now, in fairness, Claire was very nice to me during this whole thing. After I finished this program, I was brought back to California for a day or two in order to find out what was happening with my mom. I was not allowed to see my mom. I only saw my mom one other time between the ages of 12 and 16, and it was only for a half an hour. And when all the dust had settled, my Aunt Shelley was in town, Shelley Miscavige, of the Where's Shelley movement. And she approached me in the hallway and said, "Oh, I heard you were making secret calls to your mom using Tom and Jenny's phone. That's pretty crafty of you. That's pretty sneaky." So not only did she know I couldn't get a hold of my parents, she knew that I had to do this whole workaround in order to do so. She knew about everything that happened surrounding it, and she thought it was appropriate to shame me or make me feel guilty for trying to get a hold of my parents as a 12-year-old, 3,000 miles away from them. So my point here is that there were a ton of adults present. None of them reported this to the authorities. All of them perpetrated it. And I truly believe that none of them actually realized that it was wrong. And this is how it works in Scientology. This is why it's so important to let current Scientologists know, and current staff members know, and people who are currently in power in Scientology know about the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act. Because it is not just Scientology that can be held accountable for their crimes. It is also those individual people who enforced those things. Blaming it all on Scientology or David Miscavige allows it to continue. People need to know that there are consequences for their actions. And that's why I'm talking to lawyers right now, because honestly, it's not just about my case. It's about demonstrating that people cannot get away with this and that they will not be able to. And that will possibly make people who are there now, doing these same things right now, question themselves and stop and think and not just be like, "Oh, Scientology will protect me." Scientology has gotten away with these cover-ups for way too long, and now it's time for it to stop. All right, you guys, I hope that was enlightening. Thank you so much for being here for me and for all of your support. And I will keep you updated on everything that I have going on and all of my plans, and I will include you guys wherever possible. All right, have a beautiful rest of your weekend, and I will see you again soon. Bye.